Yeah, because, with me, um, I had extensive trauma. Okay. It lasted 40 years.
40
So,
years of trauma?
yeah, all my relationships, my family, um, my marriage, because when you get extensive trauma starting at a young age, say, because mine started when I was 5, okay? And I tell everybody, I had the abuse garden. Well, they're like, well, what is that? I said, okay, sexual, emotional, verbal, spiritual, and physical.
The
I
whole,
got it,
all of it.
the whole kit and caboodle, you know? And because of that, I saw within my own family what relationships were all about. And in our family, abuse equals love.
Mm.
Okay. So I had no positive influence to show me what real relationships were like. So when I became an adult, what did I know? What I learned as a child. So from my first relationship until my marriage, everyone was abusive. Every single one. And
In
because of
your mind, you thought that meant that they cared about you and that they really cared and they loved you.
this is what my grandmother told me when I was, God, I guess 7 years old. She said, when you get married, okay, whatever your husband does to you, he has a right to do to you because it's a trade for a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food in your belly.
Mm.
And that's what the women are taught as little girls. Okay, so none of my family, um, I mean, all my family follow that protocol on both sides. You know, it's a trade. It's a trade. So as a result, you learn how to be in bad relationships. And with me, it was relationships that mirrored the things that my father did to me, all the abuse.
You didn't know
So
it was bad though. It's not like you were
no,
tolerating it. It was just
no,
the what you were used to.
it's what I was used to. And as a result of long lasting trauma, it affected my mental health status.
Mm.
And my mental health was just, it was bad. I tell people all the time, people always ask, will you help me? Sure, but you need to know that this is going to be hard. There's nothing easy about this. There's nothing simple about this. If you're looking for a quick fix, you need to find somebody else because it's not a quick fix.
Exactly, and it's like that within addiction recovery too, because the substance use was just what we were doing to cover up a lot of unhealed
Okay,
pain, right? So the 30-day treatment, that's
is
just the
ridiculous.
beginning. All the work happens over a long period of time of self-reflection, inner healing, new congruent behavior where you're prioritizing your spiritual health and your physical health and setting up new relationship dynamics that are not codependent in nature, or it's the rebuilding of that self-esteem, because we're fractured at that point.
Within 30 days, you can't hit on everything. You need to do everything in stages. The mind can only handle so much, okay? And having to process old trauma and work through that takes time, you know? And then in a 30-day program, it's a summary of what you're getting ready to do within 30 days. That's what you go through in 30 days. You're hitting a summary of everything, but you're not really hitting on anything in particular to start you on your way. So you need more than just 30 days. You need something that is ongoing, something that is going to help break down each one at a time, not six at a time, because it's very frustrating for a recovering addict or alcoholic. We can't process six things at once. It's too hard for us, too frustrating, and it's too much old emotions, old hurts coming at us all at once. And when someone who's starting in their recovery and they've got this coming at them, they're going to go, you know what? No, this
Yeah.
is too much. I've been dealing with this much all my life, and now in recovery, I got to do this like this,
And not
and
you, and do it without drugs and alcohol and other drugs
and
too. Yeah.
exactly, and it's like, you know what? No, the peeling of an onion.
Yep.
There's layers. Okay, when it comes to dealing with old trauma, okay, you've got layers where they're just memories, and then you got layers where they're just emotions. And I tell people all that, be prepared when you're healing, that one day you'll be feeling fine, everything's going good, everything's great. And then just out of the blue, you got this wall of heavy, extensive emotions, and you have no idea where it came from. And you won't. Because a lot of times we separate that in our head, back then, we put the memory in one location and the pain in another, because both of them are so extensive, we can't keep them together.
Yeah, you got compartmentalization within the mind. I've done study
Yes.
research on that for a long time. So you said you've had extensive trauma. You just said all from emotional, sexual, physical. That's probably way more than a typical person who has trauma. Like, there's adverse childhood experiences where people talk about, I had trauma because my father was never around. He never showed me love. And that was the extent of what they're calling. I'm not saying that's not trauma. I'm just saying that
Right.
people still experience self-esteem issues because of that, because they were constantly seeking validation from maybe one parent that wasn't there. And the level of healing is nowhere near what you went through. But how long did it take, in your honest opinion, when you made the decision, say, I'm going to heal myself, I'm going to go through this work with other people? How long did it take you before you considered yourself to be really healed from the major portion of?
I started the healing process in 2000. I had to take a break from it. My mind needed to process all that I had learned, plus do internal healing. I had to learn how to grieve. Okay, and people are like, what do you mean grieve? It's like grieve over parents you should have had. Grieve over the dad should have been there. Grieve over a life, a life I should have had. You've got to be able to do the grieving process first. Okay, you got to start there and grieve, and it's not like fighting the tears and that. No, you need to let it out. This is the start of the healing process. You start with grieving, okay? And then from there, you start tackling the individual layers, the memories, the emotions that hit you out of nowhere, and you just have to ride the emotions out. You have to ride the memories out. But you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm hitting this bad memory, but once I heal from this one specific memory, then I'm done with it. I'm free from it. I won't be burdened by this one memory. You've healed from this one memory, then you lay it to rest.
As new ones
Yeah,
came up, it made it easier, and then the next layer and it accelerated
yeah,
in a sense.
yeah. I just kept it up. Now there were times that I would hit a memory that was, whoa, am I ready to touch this right now? And the answer is, if you don't feel like you're ready, then push it aside gently. Okay, it's there, but go to something else. There are going to be ones that you aren't ready to tackle. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We have those with extensive trauma. We have memories that are very deep, very heavy, but the pain is like an old dragon. It's heavy, it's harsh, it's deep, and it hurts, and we have to be ready to be able to tackle that. It's not that we're saying, oh, I'm pushing this aside and I'm not going to touch it. No, we're just pushing it aside to, let us prepare ourselves for it, and we'll bring it back into view when we're ready.
Sure. So like the mission, part of the mission of the podcast is learn how to heal and transcend generational patterns of trauma, addiction, and maladaptive behavior. As you made the decision that you wanted to heal, did you kind of make the decision at the same time, I need to heal and stop doing these behaviors because it's masking or it's just covering up? What can you just discuss any of that?
When I started in 2000, at the time, I was still using, it wasn't extensive. That I had pretty much backed down off of it because of my mental health was taking over. I wasn't using very heavily because I was in my head, all the time. So I really didn't think about it. Now, not to say that later on I didn't go back, which I did. I went on a 15-year binge. I had taken a break from recovery, my healing process, because, life does intercede, and my life at that time had interceded in the healing process, so I had stopped. That and my counselor that I started with had died. I was with him for 4 years. It was a husband and wife team. It was a small group of 5, and we were all in different stages of healing, but yet went through the same thing. So if someone was trying to pull the wool over our eyes, they would say, hey, you're pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Get real.
Yeah, it's like nobody knows another alcoholic or addict better than one. Like when I was managing the sober living home for all those years, we've heard every excuse. You can't lie to me. I know I know why you can't afford rent or what's going on happen, all that kind of stuff. So
right, you can't con a con is the old saying.
Right.
And we had our sessions at their house, so it's not like we were in a clinical setting. We were, but we weren't in an office. We were in their home. So because they felt people needed to be comfortable in the surroundings in order to open up. And they felt that the only way to do that, to make someone feel comfortable, is be in someone's home, have the pillows to clutch, when we feel scared. They had pillows, they had bears, that they had everything available for us.
Do you think some people that are at maybe not at the most intensive stage of healing from trauma, but maybe a little further on, would benefit from these kind of small group Zoom sessions where 3 or 4 or 5 people are on together over a period? Like they're comfortable in their own home. They can sit on their own couch and just share in a meaningful way. I think so too. I've seen it to be.
I think I take no more than 5, and I think that the participants that are in that setting need to be at different levels of healing. So that way, like we were talking about, you can't con a con. They'll point your behavior out to you. But people need to be in different stages of healing, be in the comfort of their own home, and no more than 5 participants. It could be all female, it could be all male, it could be a mixture of both. It just depends on participant and how they feel. Would they prefer all women? Or the men, would they prefer all men? Or you'll have some that'll say, it doesn't matter to me, I just want to stop hurting.
And the stages, when you said at different stages of healing, are you able to kind of identify the different stages of healing from trauma in your mind?
When I refer to the different stages, it's got a lot to do with how long have you been on your healing journey? What have you accomplished so far? And some people will have accomplished more in 3 years, and other people, it'll be 3 years and not be at that spot. You could have participants that have been on their healing journey for 5 years, but yet be far apart. One could be behind the other one and not be where that other person's at. And they're like, I want to be there. They just didn't have anybody to guide them. to be able to get to that spot that they're pointing at, saying, I want where they're at.
Would a stage in your mind be, I'm no longer using substances to change the way I feel, to mask my thing? Would that be a major stage? I used to in the past. I'm at the point now where I'm still hurting. I'm still processing stuff, but I no longer use alcohol or other drugs to change the way I feel. I just move through it.
Yeah. And that stage usually doesn't come until,
you get out of denial too. You can actually stare the brutal facts in the face and go like, there's a serious issue here. I need to do this. My life is at stake possibly, right?
Yeah. And see, with every person, until they acknowledge the denial, that the healing process is going to be stalled. It's what I call riding the fence. You're trying to do the best of both worlds. You're trying to heal, but yet it's still staying in your addiction, and it's not working.
Right.
It's not working. So until a person acknowledges the denial and finally, sees it for themselves, and it happens within your heart. Okay. You got to get that denial out of your heart. And once it's out of your heart, then you're like, oh, why am I doing this? Then the questions come, why am I still using, and I'm trying to heal?
One of the things I think that is part of like why this is part of my life mission is because my addiction to alcohol and other drugs was so severe that it was actually impossible for me to be in denial that it was a serious issue, right? Like I never went on, like there were many years when I would just announce I'm an alcoholic, a drug addict, and I do drug addict stuff. And I wasn't pretending to not be one. I wasn't denying it. I just didn't care about my life anymore. And I was going down to the bitter end. I just thought that might have been but God saved me. I got arrested, did some time in jail, all that stuff, and was able to string some time in gear, go to Senecor, get anchored in for a few years. And that's kind of really where we're at. We're both Senecor. Then you went to Senecor too, right?
I did. I am part of what they call the OG group. Okay. I'm part of the OG group. I graduated September 21st, 1991.
Oh, wow. It was still like almost like prison back then, right? It was like coming right out of prison.
The way it was run by residents, everything was done by residents, and most of those residents were from prison.
Yep.
So it was like a prison style treatment. And there were many days where we got 1 or 2 hours sleep, or the whole house was undisciplined. It was old therapeutic community. And for a lot of us, for those that stayed sober, it helped. But for someone like me, back then, we were not allowed to talk about trauma. We were not allowed to talk about the abuse and the trauma. Because, who's leading the group?
Well, it's very similar to like in an AA meeting. Probably half the people in an AA meeting are recovering from some sort of adverse childhood experience, some sort of trauma or PTSD at some level. You don't really hear that kind of talk. It's all surface level talk. My boss, my girlfriend's doing this. I'm stressed out. So you can't go deep. It does make a lot of people uncomfortable.
It does. And we were not allowed to talk about it back then. So that was the reason why I didn't stay sober, because I wasn't given the tools on how to deal with the trauma. If I had, I would still be sober today, with no interruptions.
And this is an excellent kind of like segue spot that I look forward to having many more sessions with you, and you teaching me and me learning and me teaching you and helping heal and uplift the human condition.
But I've been through it, and 40 years is a long time, and here I am. I'm still standing. And I'm standing strong. But we need to help them, my dear. We really do. We need to help them.
Is there a specific target population that you are most passionate about helping? Is it more
Yeah,
women? It's women who've had a history of sexual abuse, or just women per se? What?
no. What's going to be the hardest thing? Okay, besides, the trauma issue with the field has not been dealt with properly. The Hispanic culture, because even to this day, all the wrong things are still being taught. You've got women that are caught by traditions, and they are scared to break it. They're scared of being shunned, and we'll leave that for another time. But yeah, I'm very passionate about the Hispanic culture, because things are still in the dark. Things are still swept under the rug. Things are the elephant in the room that nobody talks about.
The Hispanic community is obviously very close. Do you think that they would align around being part of a mastermind group or an online school where they could check into or log into? And
Because you're taught you do not bring the family laundry outside the family home. You don't talk about it publicly. You don't bring our, what they call dirty laundry, out into the public.
A private community behind a login, like they would have their own login where they could talk to people.
And I could see some of the women having to go elsewhere to do it. They would not be able to do it at home, for fear of repercussions and talking about stuff that's going on behind closed doors.
So if they were able to use their cell phone to drive off in their car or go on a walk or sit at the park for half an hour, that would be aligned with what you're talking about.
That would give them, at least they would know that they don't have the family watching and family hearing.
Got it.
And it gives them an opportunity to decide for themselves what is best for my life, and it's a big decision in the Hispanic community, for someone to pretty much disassociate from family and family traditions, because family traditions is abuse.